Modern Queen Tales presents The Dazzle Takeover. Chapter 1. The Viral Execution. The holographic screen projected my public ruin in crisp, high-definition 4K. On the blue-tinted display, the grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel shimmered under 3-ton crystal chandeliers. I watched myself standing in a silk gown of my own design, my fingers laced through the arm of Phillip Von Herzlos, the Duke of High Society fashion. Then, the footage reached the mark. Philip stepped back, his face turning cold as he took the microphone from the Master of Ceremonies. Clarissa Van Dazzle is no longer associated with the Von Herzlos house, nor is she my fiancé. Philip's voice rang out through the speakers, digitized but perfectly clear. Her designs are derivative, her family's name is bankrupt, and her presence in this guild is officially terminated. The camera zoomed in on my face on the screen. My eyes widened, my lips parted in shock, and the glass of champagne slipped from my fingers, shattering against the marble floor. Below the video window, the viral counter flickered. It showed 84 million views, rising by 10,000 every second. The comment section scrolled in a blur of laughing emojis, red flag icons, and scathing remarks. Disgraced. Ruined. Social climber. My wristband buzzed with a sharp, continuous vibration. I looked down at the interface. The Social Credit Index app showed my personal rating dropping from a platinum tier 8.9 down to a flashing crimson 2.1. A chime sounded. The first email appeared on my HUD from my primary investor, Lord Argent. Pursuant to the morality clause in our agreement, Argent Capital hereby withdraws all funding for your upcoming spring collection, effective immediately. Another chime. Your lease at the Upper East Side showroom has been terminated due to reputational liability. I closed the projection with a swipe of my hand. The quiet of my temporary office, a drafty concrete loft in the heart of the raw garment district, settled around me. The room smelled of old grease, wet bricks, and iron. Dust motes danced in the thin shafts of afternoon light, cutting through the unwashed windows. Philip believed he had destroyed me. He had used his family's 300-year-old guild status to lock me out of every major fabric mill, every high-end boutique, and every banking line in Manhattan. He wanted me to crawl back to him, to beg for a secondary assistant role, to accept the crumbs of his dynasty. I stood up from my wooden packing crate. I walked to the center of the concrete floor and looked at the single garment rack standing under the bare light bulb. On it hung a jacket made of mycelium silk, a biological self-healing fabric that I had bioengineered in secret. It held a dark bismuth sheen that absorbed the light rather than reflecting it. "You took my investors, Philip," I said to the empty room. "You took my social credit, but you left me with the keys to the future." I opened my interface and registered a new corporate entity under the name Dazzle Disrupt. I signed the digital incorporation papers with a drop of my biometric thumbprint. The company was official. I was no longer a debutante waiting for a duke's approval. I was the chief executive officer of a war machine wrapped in high fashion. Chapter 2. The Underground Syndicate. The laboratory in the damp cellar of Brooklyn smelled of damp earth and fermented sugar. Dr. Arnold Thatcher stood over a stainless steel vat, his fingers stained dark green from algal dyes. He tapped the side of the vat, and a thick, iridescent sheet of biocellulose lifted out on an automated rack. It was supple, strong as steel, and possessed a natural drape that rivaled the finest Italian heavy silk. "This is the basalt-infused mycelium," Arnold said, handing me a swatch. The fabric was heavy and cool. When I stretched it, the fibers tightened, then relaxed back into perfect shape without a single crease. The traditional guilds in Milan and Paris won't touch it. They say it's heretical to grow luxury in a tank. They say that because their family fortunes are tied to cotton fields and silk plantations that are drying up, I said. I felt the edge of the fabric. "How much of this can you produce by next month?" 10,000 meters, Arnold replied, a sharp smile cutting across his face. if we have the power to keep the vats running. You have the power, I said, transferring half of my remaining liquid capital to his secure wallet. Grow me an ocean of it. My next stop was a low-ceilinged basement bar in the Lower East Side, where the air was thick with the scent of synthetic clove smoke and stale beer. Sitting in the corner booth were 3 people who had once been the rising stars of the design world before the Von Herzlos Guild blacklisted them. Jax, the tailor who had been expelled for deconstructing the traditional aristocratic military coat. Sabine, the techwear engineer whose designs incorporated flexible heating elements. And Remy, the pattern maker who designed clothes using algorithmic geometry rather than standard sizing. Clarissa, Jax said, leaning back and blowing a ring of gray smoke. We saw the video. The Duke did a number on you. The Duke gave me an opportunity to clear the board, I said, sliding a digital tablet onto the sticky table. The screen illuminated their faces with a cool blue glow. It showed the schematics for our launch collection, the Rebellion line. The silhouettes were sharp, with exaggerated shoulders, deep asymmetrical necklines, and structural panels made from Arnold's biocellulose. These garments required no ironing, they cleaned themselves when exposed to sunlight, and they adjusted their thermal insulation based on the wearer's skin temperature. Sabine leaned forward, her cybernetic eye lens clicking as it zoomed in on the schematics. These specs. This isn't just clothing. This is armor. It is, I said. The aristocratic guilds have spent centuries telling young buyers that luxury means wearing stiff, fragile silk that ruins if it rains. We are going to sell them garments that are indestructible, adaptive, and designed for a world that doesn't care about old money. The guilds will sue us into the ground if we try to distribute this through their retail channels, Remy pointed out. We aren't using their channels, I said. We are bypassing the boutiques entirely. We are selling directly to the Gen Z luxury consumer through decentralized, encrypted shopping portals. No middleman, no buyers, no guild taxes. Jax looked at Sabine, then at Remy. He reached out and tapped his thumb to my tablet, signing the partnership agreement. Let's burn his empire down. Chapter 3. Cutting the Lines. 3 months after our first quiet release, the numbers on my wall monitor glowed a vibrant, steady green. Dazzle Disrupt had achieved a net profit of $12 million in 90 days. The rebellious, sharp-shouldered jackets had become the defining uniform of the younger tech billionaires and viral creators. Every drop sold out in less than 40 seconds. I walked into the glass-walled boardroom of Pulcinella Textiles, the oldest and most prestigious organic silk mill in northern Italy. Sitting across from me was Signor Rossi, the director, whose family had supplied the Von Herzlos estate for 4 generations. He looked at his watch, his expression strained. Signorina Van Dazzle, Rossi said, his voice stiff. I have exactly 10 minutes before the Duke's representatives arrive to renew our exclusive supply contract. Why am I here? I slid a sleek, brushed aluminum briefcase across the polished mahogany table and popped the latches. Inside lay 50 physical gold bars, alongside a physical hardware wallet displaying a verified balance of $30 million in liquid currency. This is a buyout offer for Pulcinella Textiles, I said. Not a contract renewal. I am purchasing the land, the machinery, and the patents. Rossi stared at the gold, his breath catching in his throat. The Duke has an exclusive option. The Duke's contract allows him to match any offer within 10%, I interrupted, leaning forward. This offer is 40% above his valuation. Furthermore, my payment is instant. If you sign this deed right now, the funds transfer to your Swiss account before the Duke's assistant can finish parking his car downstairs. Rossi's hand shook as he reached for his digital pen. The Duke will ruin us. The Duke cannot even pay his current cotton suppliers on time, I said. I have seen his quarterly balance sheets. His cash flow is dry. Sign Signor Rossi and retire to Monaco. Rossi signed the screen. The green confirmation bar flashed across the display. The deed of Pulcinella Textiles transferred to Dazzle Disrupt. 5 minutes later, the double doors of the boardroom swung open. Philip's chief operations officer, Lord Argent, walked in, flanked by 2 attorneys. He stopped dead when he saw me sitting at the head of the table. "Clarissa?" Argent said, his eyes narrowing. "What is this?" "This mill is now a private production facility for Dazzle Disrupt," I said, standing up and smoothing down the front of my black mycelium blazer. "Your shipping contracts for the next 3 seasons are officially cancelled. You have 30 days to clear your raw materials out of my warehouses." "You can't do this," Argent shouted, his face turning red. "We have orders to fill. The Duke's signature winter line." "The Duke's signature winter line has no fabric," I said, walking past him. "I suggest you look into synthetic polyester." By afternoon, I had executed the second phase of the expansion. I opened my personal contact list and selected the contact for Letitia Winslow, the 22-year-old heiress to the Winslow shipping fortune and the undisputed queen of the young elite. She had over 50 million followers who watched her every outfit choice with religious devotion. "Clarissa," Letitia said when her holographic projection appeared in front of me. She looked curious, her gaze lingering on the sharp, matte black collar of my jacket. "I saw your drop. The whole city is talking about the biosuit." "I have a gift for you, Letitia," I said, gesturing to the box on my desk. I opened it to reveal the midnight eclipse gown. It was woven from our self-illuminating algae fiber, which glowed with a soft bioluminescent violet hue when it touched the warmth of human skin. "For the Met Gala tonight." She gasped, her fingers reaching out to touch the projection of the fabric. It's like wearing the night sky. But what about the Duke? He designed my official gown for tonight." "The Duke's gown is made of heavy, stifling velvet that will make you sweat under the cameras," I said. "This gown is 500 grams, breathes like air, and will change color based on your heart rate. When you step onto that red carpet, every camera in the world will ignore him and look at you." She smiled, her eyes glittering with the thrill of the rebellion. "Send it to my suite immediately." That evening, I watched the Met Gala broadcast from my terminal. When Letitia Winslow stepped out of her limousine wearing the glowing, shifting violet gown of Dazzle Disrupt, the press line erupted into a frenzy of camera flashes. The reporters ignored the traditional velvet and lace worn by the other debutantes. Within 10 minutes, Letitia's social post, showcasing our brand tag, received 30 million likes. By midnight, 7 of the Duke's most prominent high-net-worth clients had canceled their custom orders with his atelier. My inbox was flooded with requests for private fittings from the heirs of the world's largest fortunes. To ensure his collapse, I avoided the traditional shipping lanes. The Duke controlled the maritime shipping routes through his ancestral alliances, but I bypassed them entirely. I secured exclusive cargo space on the high-speed vacuum tube rail network connecting Europe to Asia, and established a fleet of autonomous electric delivery drones for domestic orders. Our garments traveled from the Pulcinella mills to the customer's doorstep in 48 hours, entirely bypassing the ports and custom houses controlled by the Von Herzlos estate. Chapter 4: The Financial Siege of the Estate. The office of the Von Herzlos Group was a quiet place of dark mahogany, heavy carpets, and stale air. I knew this because I was watching it through the live feed of their public stock ticker, which occupied the center of my secondary monitor. The red line representing their share value was ticking downward, a steady, relentless drop of 2% a day. "Our pricing campaign is live," Sabine announced, walking into my office with a data pad. She wore a sleeveless slate gray vest that showed the shifting silver circuits of her tech-implanted arm. "We have launched our Vanguard trench at $400. And the Duke's equivalent?" I asked. "His classic gabardine trench coat is priced at $2,400, Sabine said. "Ours is waterproof, stain-proof, has integrated heating panels, and costs a fraction of his to produce because of our automated biovats. We are underselling him by 85% while maintaining a 60% profit margin." Run the predatory campaign across all channels, I instructed. Target his digital demographic. Every time someone searches for Von Herzlos trench, show them our comparison ad highlighting his high prices and outdated materials. By the end of the week, the retail world had shifted. The major fashion influencers, the young, cynical arbiters of taste who dictated what was acceptable to wear, had abandoned the heritage brands. I watched a stream from the top fashion critic in Paris, a sharp-tongued young woman who stood in front of a mirror holding a Von Herzlos coat in one hand and our Vanguard trench in the other. "Look at this," she said, pulling at the seams of the Duke's coat. "Stiff, hard to clean. If you get caught in a summer rain, you've ruined $2,000 of wool. Now look at the Dazzle Disrupt coat. I can literally spill red wine on this, and it slides off like water. The Duke's heritage brand isn't luxury anymore. It's just a dusty museum piece for people who don't know any better." #Herzlos' history. The stock ticker for the Von Herzlos group plummeted. A red alert flashed on my screen. The market capitalization of the Duke's company had dropped below the critical margin threshold. His bank, the New York Commercial Union, sent an automated public notice. The Von Herzlos Group has been issued a margin call on its outstanding $50 million construction loan. I opened my terminal and dialed the personal number of the bank's president, Marcus Barnes. "Clarissa," Marcus said, his voice instantly warm. He was a man who respected money, and my company now held more liquid deposits in his bank than any other fashion house in the hemisphere. "I was just looking at your company's balance sheet. Astonishing numbers." "Thank you, Marcus," I said. "I understand you have an outstanding debt obligation with Phillip Von Herzlos." "We do," Marcus said, his tone turning cautious. "He is currently searching for a secondary investor to cover the margin." "Do not let him find one," I said. "I want you to call the loan. Foreclose on his collateral." "That collateral includes the Von Herzlos ancestral estate," Marcus said, his eyes widening. "The manor in upstate New York. It has been in his family for 3 centuries. "I know," I said. "And I am prepared to buy that debt from you right now, at face value. I will pay the $50 million in cash, provided you transfer the foreclosure rights to Dazzle Disrupt by 5 o'clock today." Marcus didn't hesitate. He tapped his screen. "The debt is yours, Clarissa." Chapter 5. Ultimate Retribution and the New Standard. The air at the bankruptcy auction was cold and smelled of old floor wax and damp stone. The auction was held in the grand gallery of the Von Herzlos Manor, a massive stone mansion surrounded by 300 acres of prime Hudson Valley forest. The portraits of Philip's ancestors, stern men in high collars, and women in heavy velvet, stared down from the wood-paneled walls, their painted eyes looking at the folding metal chairs arranged on the parquet floor. I sat in the front row. I wore a tailored white mycelium suit that seemed to glow against the dark, dusty wood of the gallery. Jax and Sabine sat on either side of me, holding digital tablets that tracked the bidding process. Phillip Von Herzlos stood at the back of the room. His charcoal suit was unpressed, his silk tie was slightly crooked, and his dark hair was disheveled. The arrogance that had defined him at the Plaza Hotel Gala was gone, replaced by a pale, hollow look of disbelief. He stared at the auctioneer as if he were watching his own execution. "We will begin the bidding for the property known as the Von Herzlos estate," the auctioneer announced, his gavel raised. "Including the manor house, the grounds, and all historical contents. Opening bid is set at $15 million. The representative from a luxury hotel chain raised his paddle. $15 million. A real estate developer raised his hand. $16 million. I waited as the price climbed slowly to $22 million, then $24 million. The bidders were hesitant, aware of the massive maintenance costs of the old estate. $24 million going once, the auctioneer called, looking around the room. Going twice. $50 million, I said, my voice clear and quiet. The room went completely silent. The other bidders turned to look at me, their faces registering shock. Philip flinched as if he had been struck. He took a step forward, his knuckles white as he gripped the back of a wooden chair. $50 million is bid by Clarissa Van Dazzle, the auctioneer said, his voice cracking slightly. Are there any further bids? No one moved. No one spoke. The price was far beyond the commercial value of the land, but to me, it was a bargain. Sold, the auctioneer said, slamming his gavel down with a sharp, echoing crack. To Dazzle Disrupt! I stood up, turning around slowly to face Philip. He walked down the center aisle, his eyes burning with a mixture of rage and desperation. He stopped 3 feet from me, his chest rising and falling in rapid, shallow breaths. Clarissa, he whispered, his voice hoarse. You've taken everything. My company, my mills, my clients, and now my home. Why? Because I ended our engagement? No, Philip, I said, my voice even and cold. Not because you ended it, because you tried to destroy me to protect your fragile, dying world. You wanted to make me an example of what happens to anyone who challenges the old guilds. Instead, I made you an example of what happens when the old world tries to fight the future. He looked down at his shoes, his shoulders slumping. I have nothing left. The banks have frozen my personal accounts. My name is blacklisted by every design house in Europe. I can't even get an interview for an assistant position. I reached into the pocket of my white jacket and pulled out a small gray plastic badge. It was a standard entry card for the Dazzle Disrupt domestic fulfillment facility. I tossed it onto the auctioneer's table in front of him. It slid across the polished wood, stopping at his fingertips. We are converting this manor into our new North American distribution headquarters, I said. The grand ballroom will be the sorting facility for our automated drone fleet. We require a night shift logistics clerk to monitor the incoming shipping crates and sweep the loading dock. Philip stared at the badge. You want me to sweep my own family's ballroom? The position pays $22 an hour, I said. It includes basic medical coverage and a standard orange safety vest. You can start on Monday morning at 6. Or you can leave and see if any of your old guild friends will offer you a cup of coffee. He stood frozen for a long, agonizing minute. His fingers trembled as they reached out, his hand closing around the gray plastic badge. He squeezed it tight, his head bowing. Thank you, CEO Van Dazzle, he whispered. Don't be late, Philip, I said. I am very particular about the cleanliness of my floors. I turned my back on him and walked out of the gallery, Jax and Sabine following close behind. As I stepped out onto the wide stone terrace of the manor, the cool morning air hit my face. Below us, the Hudson River wound through the green hills like a ribbon of dark silver. My wristband buzzed with a soft, pleasant chime. I looked down at the display. The Social Credit Index app showed my personal rating had reached a flawless 9.9, the highest score ever recorded in the fashion sector. Below it, the Dazzle Disrupt ticker showed our market share had surpassed 42% globally, making us the undisputed leader of the new luxury age. I looked back at the grand stone entrance of the house that had once belonged to the family that rejected me. The bronze plaque bearing the Von Herzlos name had already been removed. In its place, the clean, sharp logo of Dazzle Disrupt caught the morning light, shining like polished bismuth. I'd done far more than just surviving their rejection. I had rebuilt the world in my own image. The end.
If you enjoyed this quick escape, hit the subscribe button for new stories, twice a week. Until then, I'll see you at the next flip of the pages.